The air in Cleveland, Ohio, on May 6, 2013, was thick with the weight of an ordinary day. But at 5:52 p.m., a frantic voice shattered the calm. A woman, breathless and trembling, dialed 911 from a neighbor's phone. Her words spilling out in a desperate rush. She was Amanda Berry, missing for a decade, now free, standing across the street from the house where her nightmare had unfolded. The operator's voice strained to keep up, urging her to stay with the neighbors, to wait for the police. Amanda's plea was raw, urgent. She needed them now, before he returned. Minutes earlier, another call had come from Charles Ramsey, a local man fresh from a McDonald's run. His voice a mix of shock and urgency as he described a woman clawing her way out of the house next door, screaming for help. She was in a panic, he said, claiming she'd been kidnapped, trapped with her daughter. The 911 lines buzzed with chaos, each call peeling back the layers of a horror that had festered in plain sight for years. The house at 2000-107 Seymour Avenue stood unassuming, its faded exterior blending into the working-class neighborhood. But behind its boarded windows and padlocked doors, a monstrous secret had been kept for over a decade. Ariel Castro, a school bus driver and local musician, had orchestrated a reign of terror, holding three women: Mitchell Knight, Amanda Berry, and Gina DeJesus, captive in a labyrinth of chains, fear, and manipulation. The world would soon know this as one of the most chilling cases of abduction and survival in modern history. The nightmare began in August 2002, when 21-year-old Michelle Knight stepped out of a family member's home, her mind fixed on a custody hearing for her 2-year-old son, Joey. Michelle's life had been a gauntlet of hardship, abyss, poverty, and a stint living on the streets after running away at 14. Now, pregnant at 18 from an alleged assault and reeling from losing Joey to foster care after an incident involving her mother's boyfriend, she was determined to fight for him. Lost in an unfamiliar part of town, she was approached by a man she recognized as Ariel Castro, the father of one of her friends. He offered her a ride to the hearing, and trusting him was a mistake that would cost her 11 years of her life. Castro, then 42, was a predator cloaked in familiarity. He lured Michelle to his Seymour Avenue home with the promise of a puppy for Joey, a gesture that seemed kind to a young mother desperate for hope. But once inside, the facade crumbled. Castro attacked, binding her with extension cords, gagging her with a sock, and chaining her in the basement. He tore up the only photo she had of Joey, sneering that she'd never see her son again. For days, he kept her in darkness, a motorcycle helmet muffling her screams, loud music drowning out her cries. The assaults were relentless, each one a calculated act of domination. When Michelle's pet dog, Lobo, bit Castro in her defense, he snapped its neck in front of her, a brutal display of his control. Michelle was his first victim, and her captivity marked the beginning of Castro's descent into a sadistic fantasy. 7 months later, on April 21, 2003, 16-year-old Amanda Berry walked home from her job at a fast food restaurant, one day shy of her 17th birthday. As she passed a vehicle in a driveway, she smiled at the occupants, a man and a girl she thought she recognized from middle school. The man was Castro, and the girl, one of his daughters, was no longer in the car when he pulled up beside Amanda, offering her a ride. Trusting him as the father of a friend, she accepted, unaware that she was stepping into a trap. At his house, Castro claimed his daughter was bathing and began showing Amanda around. Upstairs, she glimpsed a woman asleep, Michelle, now 22, though Amanda didn't know her then. The tour ended in a bedroom where Castro's demeanor shifted. He ordered her to undress, bound her wrists and ankles with tape, and chained her to a pole in the basement, a helmet over her head to silence her. Amanda's cries went unanswered, her only companion a flickering TV broadcasting her family's pleas for her return. A year later, on April 2, 2004, Castro struck again. 14-year-old Gina DeJesus was walking home after parting ways with Castro's daughter, Arlene. When Castro pulled up, asking if Gina had seen Arlene, she didn't hesitate to help. Recognizing him as a friend's father, he lured her to his house under the pretense of moving equipment, but once inside, his behavior turned sinister. Grooming himself in front of her, he began touching her inappropriately, When Gina protested, he told her she could leave it through the basement door. There, he ambushed her, chaining her up despite her fierce resistance. She kicked and screamed, but the blaring radios in the house swallowed her cries. Gina's mother reported her missing that day, but police initially dismissed it as a runaway case, a misstep that allowed Castro's crimes to continue unchecked. Inside the house, the women endured unimaginable horrors, chained in filthy, cramped rooms. They were starved, tortured, and assaulted daily. Michelle, kept naked through her first winter with only a thin sheet, wasn't allowed to shower for 8 months. Amanda lived in a closet-sized room, using a bucket for a toilet, the stench a constant reminder of her captivity. Gina and Michelle were chained together, sharing a mattress, their suffering compounded by Castro's psychological games. He pitted them against each other, giving Gina the nicest room to sow resentment, handing out small allowances for food to create a twisted economy of dependence. When Michelle resisted, calling him dude instead of his name, Castro beat her harder. Unable to break her spirit, "You can't break someone who's already broken," she later said. "You can only make them stronger." Castro's control was absolute. He boarded up windows, locked doors, and played mind games to keep the women in line. He'd pretend to leave, only to sneak back, testing their obedience. Once, he forced Gina to play Russian roulette, claiming the gun held 1 bullet. Defiant, she pulled the trigger, hoping to end him, but the chamber was empty. The women clung to slivers of hope. Michelle dreamed of her son. Amanda wrote in a diary addressed to her mother, and Gina found solace in small acts of rebellion. They were kept apart at first, but on May 23, 2004, Castro brought them together to watch America's Most Wanted, featuring Amanda and Gina's cases. The sight of their family's grief was a cruel taunt, especially for Michelle, whom Castro mocked, saying no one was looking for her. In 2006, Amanda gave birth to a daughter, Jocelyn, in a baby pool in the house, with Michelle forced to assist under threat of death. The baby's arrival brought a flicker of joy, but also fear. Amanda worried Castro might harm her child. Jocelyn was occasionally allowed outside, disguised, while the women remained hidden. Castro's confidence grew reckless. He hosted family and friends at the house, hiding the women in the basement or a van. In 2009, they watched news of J.C. Dugard's escape after 18 years, a surreal mirror of their own plight. When one woman compared it to their situation, Castro laughed, asking if they'd write a book about him. The turning point came on May 6, 2013. Jocelyn, now 6, ran to Amanda, saying Castro was gone. For the first time, Amanda's bedroom door was unlocked. Heart pounding, she crept downstairs, finding the front door alarmed but the storm door merely padlocked. She forced it open enough to thrust her arm out, screaming for help. Neighbor Aurora Marty, 75, heard her and approached, stunned when the woman identified herself as Amanda Berry. "You can't be Amanda," Marty said. "Amanda's dead." Charles Ramsey, eating a McDonald's burger nearby, saw her arm and ran to help, kicking the door until Amanda and Jocelyn crawled through. At a neighbor's house, Amanda called 911, her voice trembling with fear that Castro would return. Police arrived at 5:54 p.m., flagged by Amanda and her daughter. Forcing their way through the storm door, they searched the house. In the basement, they found nothing, but upstairs, an officer's shout of Cleveland police brought Michelle running, tears streaming as she hugged him, sobbing. "You saved me." Gina emerged from another room, and for the first time in years, the 3 women stepped outside, free at last. Michelle, now 32, Amanda, 27, and Gina, 23. Castro was arrested at 6:16 p.m., pulling into a McDonald's parking lot. His brothers, Pedro and O'Neill, were briefly detained, but released, with no evidence they knew of his crimes. The house on Seymour Avenue became a global symbol of horror, its secrets exposed. Michelle, hospitalized with a life-threatening infection, weighed only 84 pounds, her body and spirit scarred from years of abuse. Amanda and Gina, too, bore deep wounds, their lives forever altered. At trial, Castro pleaded guilty to 937 counts of kidnapping and assault, avoiding the death penalty with a sentence of life plus 1,000 years. He claimed he was sick, not a monster, but his excuses rang hollow. On September 3, 2013, less than 2 months into his sentence, he was found dead in his cell, having taken his own life. For the women, it was a hollow victory, their abuser gone, but their healing just beginning. Michelle, now Lily Rose Lee, has written books and founded a charity to help survivors. Amanda raises Jocelyn and hosts a news segment on missing persons. Gina, with her driver's license and a renewed education, advocates for the missing. Though their bonds frayed under Castro's manipulations, their resilience shines. From the house on Seymour Avenue, they emerged not as victims, but as survivors. Their courage a testament to the human spirit's unbreakable will.